Hello, hello, and welcome to today's live. Sorry about the lighting today. We're having fun and games at home at the moment, which is also another reason why I'm running later than anticipated. So please accept my apologies for that. We're having a lighting issue at home for various energetic reasons. I've managed to blow rather a lot of light bulbs in a very short space of time, and as you can see, my temporary solution seems to be casting a glare on today's live, so I do apologize for that. So first of all, is there anybody on here? Because you know, the live sign is on, but I'm not being told that anybody is on. If you are here, please say hello in the chat box, because I'd love to connect with you personally and say hello back, as I always like to. And I do appreciate if you aren't able to be here, because I did specify a different time, so I can't apologize enough for that. But if you are here on the replay, hello and welcome. So before I actually dive into today's topic, I will just quickly introduce myself. I'm Gia Lily, Soul Relationship Guide, and what I do is I help single intuitive women who are looking to attract their soulmate, and what I do to support that process is to remove all the barriers that are holding you back from doing that. Okay, and also for those of you who know you are here for a very specific purpose on this earth plane, I'm here to support you also in calling in your divine partner so that you can carry out your life purpose together. So that is essentially who I support and who I help. So hi there. Let's see. Right. So let's start this broadcast. Sorry, I've just a little bit sidetracked for a second. I obviously feel that my guides are coming in close. I mean, what we normally do is connect in before the camera goes on, but since I was having a little bit of a frantic moment with, you know, just sort of preparing for today's live, I got back into human mode again instead of spirit mode. So just give me a moment where I'm just sort of adjusting myself so that I can talk about today's topic, which is the biggest block to attracting your soulmate. And it really isn't what you think it is. You'd be quite surprised. But I'll talk about that in just a moment. I feel that I do have somebody here with me live. Hello, hello. I did see some hearts flying by, so they can't be happening on their own. So that must mean that I have company. Hello, hello. So I'll start off because, you know, we got to. And so here it is. So the biggest block, and what I will also do in this live, just to demonstrate how this actually all works, is that if you've been following me for quite some time, you know that I like to explain how things work. Yeah, I'm a huge proponent, I'm a big fan of breaking down the why and what it looks like. You know, it's not just be a case of you taking my word for it, because, you know, again, I'm very much about supporting the process of you connecting with your intuition and really tuning in to what feels like, you know, is your own truth. And again, that's kind of another aspect of what I do also, you know, is helping you to really trust your intuition regarding relationships and the relationship with yourself also, and what's going on for you, and what, you know, what you need to be aware of, and what needs to be shifted, and what needs to be cleared, and so on and so forth. This is very much, I very much encourage like a heart-to-heart connection, you know, an intuitive connection between myself and yourself, obviously. Okay, so here it is. Are you ready for this? Do you really want to know what the biggest block to attracting your soulmate is. If you are here, say yes if you're ready to hear what I've got to say. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. If you are here live, I'll give you a few minutes just to say yes in the chat box so that we can start. There may be a delay, so I'll wait a little longer and then I'll just dive straight in. Good old Facebook. Now. Okay. So here it is. The biggest barrier to attracting your soulmate is unforgiveness. Would you believe it? Now, it sounds like a really cliche thing to say, and I will break it down for you as to why this is and what it looks like and how it shows itself in your life, okay? Because that's the most important thing. Now, unforgiveness is the biggest, ugliest barrier when it comes to bringing in love into your life. I know this from personal experience too. It's not just one of these cliche things that I've been taught to say. I've been there, you know, I've got the scars. So yeah, it's just one of those things that I've also learned the hard way. All right. So that is really what the block is. And I'll show you. And the thing is, you know, even if you're in a relationship or you're just starting a relationship, if you haven't resolved issues of forgiveness, it still feeds into your current situation and can sabotage it. That's not the only thing, right? So let me tell you a little story, okay, about how this shows up. So with the example I just gave you about, like, even if you think, oh, well, you know, I've managed to attract a really great relationship, you know, and he is a fantastic guy or she's a fantastic girl. And, you know, we get on really well, but, you know, I don't talk to my ex or whatever it might be, right? Here's the thing, you know, even in the beginning stages of a relationship, if you haven't resolved something from an old relationship, which is to do with how you were mistreated or something like this, and you are bringing in that energy of unforgiveness into your new relationship, it could potentially sabotage it. Okay, even if not at that point, but later on down the line, it happens. Okay, let me tell you a little story about how this showed up in my own life. Okay, so here I was dating this rather gorgeous guy, and he still is, because actually, excuse me, he's actually my guy now. We're still together. But when we first got together, you know, at the very beginning stages of the relationship, you know, like when you go through the honeymoon period, you know, when you think the sun shines out of each other's eyeballs, right? And all that good stuff, you know, you can't get enough of each other, you know, you always think about them and all the rest of it. Okay. Now, so I was in my honeymoon phase, if you like. And what happened was, on Valentine's Day, and as it happened, like, he was really sick, so I didn't get to see him that day, unfortunately, because like he was really, really unwell, so we couldn't spend Valentine's Day together. Now, even though like we were getting on really well, there was something that I hadn't resolved from my past. And as it happened, on Valentine's Day, when my now partner was really sick in bed, okay, and we were both upset about the fact that we weren't able to spend the day together, I get an unexpected message, right, on Facebook from an ex. And this person I hadn't spoken to for like at least 15 years, okay? Now, here's the thing. This was the really interesting thing. The thing was that I never expected to hear from this guy, ever. Simply because the last time we spoke, it was a really volatile interaction, right? And we weren't very nice to one another at all. Now, bearing in mind, I was, I must have been something like 19 or 20 years old at the time, you know, a real firecracker. And, you know, and my temper was the worst back then. You know, I didn't suffer fools gladly. And I mean, okay, that's still the case now. And, you know, I'm aware of that shadow side of me. You know, I've acknowledged that. But back then, you know, it was kind of out of control, really. Yeah, I had real issues with suppressed anger. But the thing was, like, he'd press my buttons back then. So we'd had a very volatile exchange of words. So I didn't expect at all to hear from him like 15, 16, whatever years later, and on Valentine's Day, right? So here he comes forward and he's messaging me and he's speaking very highly of me, very nicely. And it was a very interesting thing simply because I'd never given him a second thought since I spoke to him that time ago. And the interesting thing was, you know, and you know how you hear the term forgive and forget. Now, here's a question for you. Do you really think that by forgetting someone that you've really let go and released and forgiven them? It's a question for you to think about. Just because you don't think about them, just because you've gone your separate ways, you know, regardless of the circumstance that happened, you know, have you really released them? Have you really forgiven them? And, you know, and that was my lesson at that point in time. This is what I'm referring to in this story right now. Because when I read his message, and it was on Valentine's Day, which triggered me even more. You see, and that's the thing, it triggered me after all that time. And there's me thinking that I'd actually got over it and that I'd dealt with all of it. And the fact was that I hadn't, because I was triggered by the fact that he'd A, messaged me, and B, was so very nice to me, because he wasn't so nice to me in our relationship. So, you know, and so there we have it. And the fact that I'd responded to that, you know, and I felt like this inner anger coming up. I thought, well, okay, Gia, you obviously haven't let this go. It doesn't matter that you haven't spoken to him for however many years. The fact is that you haven't dealt with this. So that was a real eye-opener for me, that the reaction that I gave said it all, really. Now, of course, I responded very calmly. And, you know, so because, you know, I didn't want to keep that whole thing going. That anger was mine. I had to deal with it. It had nothing to do with him. I was holding on to that. So it was up to me to then deal with it and clear it. Because there wasn't anything as such for me to clear with him as far as I was concerned. We had gone our separate ways. It was down to me then to deal with my emotions, to clear that and heal that. Because I didn't want that coming into my current relationship, of course. Now, the interesting thing was, you know, when I was triggered by all of this and I remembered all the things that happened from my relationship with that guy, you know, even though I was clearing and releasing, there were still moments of doubt that were coming up for me that were interfering with my new relationship. You know, I started to look at my guy now, you know, I started to look at him with suspicion. It's like, well, are you going to cheat on me? Are you going to not bother, you know? And the things that I had going on with the first guy, I started to bring all those doubts and insecurities into the current relationship. Now, fortunately for me, you know, the guy that I'm with now, and I'm still with, you know, after 7 years, is my twin flame. So, and because of that, he is very aware. He knew intuitively that he needed to give me assurance at the right time. You see, and that's the thing, because twin souls are so connected, they know exactly what to do and when. So fortunately for me, because it was my twin soul, in this instance, who was supporting me through my my emotional insecurities, you know, luckily it all worked out. Had it not been, it would have been a different story. You know, had it been somebody else completely, then I honestly don't think that I would have got through that, and that the relationship would have, you know, would have lasted. You know, so fortunately for me, that was my twin flame. But you can see the potential. You can see where I'm going with this. Yeah. So even though I was in a relationship and the ex came back in, right, and it came in with the energy of, you know, I'm sorry, and, you know, let's try again. But obviously I was with somebody else, and even if I wasn't going to go down that road anyway. But the point is this, you know, and here, this brings me on to another point, actually. Apart from the fact that I had to process that whole thing about actually not having forgiven this guy at all, and I thought I'd had, apart from that, there was another lesson in that. And here's the thing, and if this is your situation, or you've ever been in this situation, then you'll be able to understand this, or be able to now make sense of it. Now, what happens is that, you know, and the thing is, as intuitives, we begin to wonder whether that person who had left us long ago really was the one for us, because they've now come back in to our life. Yeah, just like that other guy came back into mine. I could have, had I not been so intuitively switched on, and had I not had such a strong connection with my guides, it could have been very, very easy for me to think, oh, well, he's come back in now. Oh, and it's Valentine's Day. Oh, and the new guy I'm seeing now is sick, and we couldn't be together this day. Now, the thing is, those kind of basic nudgings, if you like, or signs from the universe, could potentially have indicated that that guy was actually the one for me, and that we needed to resolve things. Now, obviously, I knew better. You know, I was tuned in to that extent to know that that wasn't the case. But I could understand it if somebody was to think that way. You know, if you were to think that way about your situation, I would understand why you would think that. But here's the thing, right? When you have a situation like that, either if you're dating someone, or you're releasing them to prepare for your soulmate, and your ex then decides to come back in, why that happens is because they are corded to you. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to cords, what I'm talking about is that they are energetically corded to you. It's like having a rope attached between you and them, and it's like a cord that pulls you together. And that cord can come about as a result of, well, basically is attachment. It's like, because something isn't resolved, you are still essentially tied to that person. And when you're tied to that person and you haven't resolved what needs to be resolved, you then can't move on to another relationship. Or even if you try to, or even if you do, that cord to the other person will still pull you back. Does this make sense? If this makes sense, if you're live or if you are watching a replay, drop a 1 in the comment section there and let me know that makes sense to you. Now, if you'd like to know more about how the whole dynamics of energetic cords work, also drop a 1 in the comments, and I'll be happy to do a separate video about how that all works, because that's another entity entirely. Okay, so that's what happens. And the thing is, like, when an ex comes back into your life, right, while you're trying to prepare for your soulmate, yeah, it doesn't mean that that ex is your soulmate and he's coming back in because he's sorry or whatever it might be, and that it's time for you to, have another chance together. That's not always the case, and usually it isn't the case. It's because there are things that are unresolved that need to be cleared. Okay? So that's what happens, and unfortunately that that thing where the ex comes back in is usually, sadly, very sadly mistaken for, for a sign that, that person is the one, not the one coming in. And then you end up back in the same situation with that ex and nothing changes. And again, that's another sign that that person is not your soulmate or the one that you are, going to be spending your life with. All right, because even if you give them a second chance and a third chance and that leopard ain't changing his spots, then you know for sure that that person is not the one, and that they are just literally, they're just holding you back, right? They are pulling you closer to them, so that it's harder for you then to break away and be with your soulmate or your divine partner. Okay? So those are the two main things that happen. And, both of these things are a sign of unforgiveness. When you haven't actually let go and resolved whatever's going on, with you and the ex, it's harder for you to move on to be with your, the one who's coming in, the one that you want to be with, the one that you've created your vision boards on, or you've written your ideal partner list on, or whatever it might be, the one you're calling in. It's all very well calling them in, but if you're being pulled back by an ex, it's, you're going to end up being even more conflicted. That's what happens. Yeah. And I'll give you another example as well. Okay. Of an ex coming back and you give them a second chance. Again, I've done this one as well. So I've learned the hard way. Okay. I've learned it. So it might sound really easy to say, oh, just do this and oh, just do that. But I walk my talk. I've been there and I've come out the other side, which is why I can say these things with such conviction. Okay. So again, we were saying earlier on about the leopard not changing his spots. The thing with me was though, and again, this comes down to forgiveness, because what had happened with ex number 3, because I was talking about ex number 1. Yeah, we go to ex number 3. There aren't that many, honest. But number 3, again, was a significant one. And this was where I allowed my ex back into my life, giving him a second chance. Now, the thing was, he was unfaithful to me. And lots of other women, actually. So I wasn't the only one. I wasn't that special. I laugh about it now, but obviously it was a very painful time. And I'm not, and if this is your situation, I'm certainly not laughing at your misfortune. Okay? I'm just laughing at the situation that I'd found myself in at the time. So the thing is, when you've got, and I had to really, the thing was that for me to be able to really let go of ex number 3, I actually had to call him back in to my life to be able to then release him. Now, that might sound a bit backwards, but I needed to go through the process of forgiveness. Say, yeah, this is what had happened, this is how I felt about the situation, this is what you had done, and this is how it affected me, but we can give this a go. And I tried that. And the most important thing was that I'd learned the lesson of forgiveness. So the second time around, when I'd actually finished the relationship, it was on my terms. And what I mean by it being on my terms was that I didn't feel corded to him. I didn't feel attached to him. I didn't feel the need to cling on to him like I did the first time around, because I just wanted to make things better, right? But the second time around, I'd gone through the healing process. I'd gone through the clearing process that needed to happen, right, to let him go. So when I'd had that discussion with him, it was easier. I say easier, it still wasn't easy, it was still emotional. I'd spent 4 years with him, on and off, but it was 4 years nonetheless of my life and, of all the things that you go through in a relationship, well, that I did during that time. So I had to go through the process of forgiveness, and it was with the completion of that forgiveness process that I was really able to let him go so that he didn't re-enter my life. And then for me to really start with a clean slate. Of course, I spent time on my own afterwards to go through more healing. But when my beloved now, obviously, because then he was, if you want to number them, my beloved is number 4. So when he came in, you know, the slate was clear in terms of forgiveness. So I was ready to receive that deep, loving, supportive relationship, which I still have now. Yes, of course we have our ups and downs, and if you know anything about twin flames, then yes, it can be a rocky road, but essentially, you know, we were together through a lot of it. So, and that's the thing, you know, when you are able to have that deep, loving connection with a soul partner, in my case, my divine partner, who is here to help me on my life mission, then it's a completely different equation. It really, really is. So hopefully you've now got an idea of how, you know, forgiveness, or unforgiveness should I say, can have an impact on your romantic relationships, you know, or for them to even come into your life. You know, if you're being pulled by an ex still, you can't then move forward. Or, you know, or if you're trying to give someone a second chance and still you're basically flogging a dead horse, and, you know, you're trying to stay in for the long haul and see if it all turns around and nothing's happening, you know, you are basically keeping yourself stuck in a situation where you're never going to meet your soul partner then. So of course then, you know, the choice is entirely yours. What you choose to do with that is entirely yours at the end of the day. But these are the telltale signs that, you know, unforgiveness is stopping you from moving forward, you know, because there are cords of attachment there as well. Hello Penny, I've just seen your comment come up. So if you said hello ages ago, then I'm only just seeing it now. There may well be a delay on Facebook. If you've only just joined now, then you can always catch the replay. So yes, that is essentially what goes on with unforgiveness. And because you have cords of attachment, they keep you held fast. Now the thing is, the great news is that you can release these cords of attachment so that you can move forward. And well, first of all, you can heal and you can move forward so that that energy of the exes, you know, it's not just one, it could be many, right? And it's not just of this lifetime, it could be of other lifetimes as well. Yes, of other lifetimes, believe it. It happens. And I've seen it quite a lot actually with my clients, where we've gone through like the healing consultation before they actually have their cosmic clearing or their heal your heart and soul sessions, like where we're really going deep and getting to the root cause of what's keeping them stuck within their situation of not being able to attract love into their life. You know, we really go deep and find out all the blocks and issues that are really keeping them stuck. So what happens is that what I've noticed is that clearing needs to happen on a multi-dimensional level, which means not just on this lifetime, not just in this lifetime, not just on this plane, but from other lifetimes too. So even if you think, well, I haven't got an issue with forgiveness with anyone in this lifetime, it may be from other lifetimes. And the other thing is as well, it's like if you are carrying guilt as well, if you are the perpetrator and if you're holding on to guilt from like the way you may have treated or mistreated someone either in this life or another one, it's still imprinted in your aura, in your etheric blueprint. So yeah, so it can also affect you like that. So what happens in those healing sessions is that I'm able to work with my spirit team to really clear of that across, you know, all lifetimes and all lifelines as well, you know, on a multi-dimensional level. That's what I do with my team. And it's such a great thing. It really is. It's amazing that the results that my clients have had as well. So So there is a way around it. Now, if that's something that sounds of interest of you and you want to find out more how to do that, or you want to talk about your situation, then you're welcome to drop me a Facebook message, or I think that's the best one. Drop me a Facebook message and we can easily sort out a free 30-minute call where we can dive into your situation and see what's going on for you and see how you can move forward from that. I invite you to do that if you feel that's something that you need right now. Okay, so on that note, I will close this broadcast for today. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time, and wishing you a wonderful Thursday. And I will speak to you again next Thursday. Actually, we'll be doing lives regularly on a Thursday around 8:30 p.m. UK time, 3:30 Eastern, 12 noon Pacific, and wherever else you are in the world. I'll always make sure that I leave a link for you so that you can check out the time conversions for wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Sending you much love and many blessings. Bye for now.